Hey everyone, so today we'll be implementing a scroll based animation for our website, specifically a video playback one. And the idea is simple. As I scroll through the website, the animation also starts playing. So the current frame that is visible is dependent upon my scroll position. As you can see, as I scroll up or down, the video also moves back and forth. Parkour! So we've ditched airpods for Parkour, and this is what we'll be building. As you can see, as I scroll down, Michael Scott does his infamous parkour move and shouts parkour at the end, and it's made for Michael Scott's parkour company. And we'll be focusing on the scroll animation of Michael Scott doing the flip. Let's see how this is implemented. Let me open my developer tools and inspect this. And we can see there is a canvas present here. Additionally, if I open the sources tab or even the networks tab, you can see that there is no video present. Instead, there are a series of images, continuous like the frames of a video, and are also numbered sequentially from 1 to 150. This indicates there are 150 frames. Now this should give you a rough idea how this works. The concept is very similar to the traditional stop motion animation. Images are traversed through one by one, and as we move through it, we feel like it's animating because we are moving through it fast and it feels like it's moving, but basically they are all standstill images. So first things first, we need to prepare the frames from the videos first. You can use a free open source software called as FFmpeg to generate frames from the video. I've already navigated to the path where the video lies, and I'll run the following command. It says to input the video, which in my case is parkour.mp4, and we can also set the FPS of the video, frames per second, and finally the output name of the file. A sequence of 4 digits. So let's hit enter, and as you can see, it will generate all the frames from the video as we require. For the purposes of this tutorial, I'll be keeping these images in my local. It's always recommended to host them in a CDN like S3 bucket, etc. Back in VS Code, I've already created a base React app using Vite and cleared all the boilerplate code and set up a simple JSX skeleton here. Highly recommend you check out Vite. It is a modern build tool used for creating React apps, and it's super fast. A lot of out-of-the-box features like TypeScript support, and yeah, so do check that out. As for the JSX, we have the main section with an ID main and 3 sections inside it. The first section contains a text, so does the third one, and the second section is where we'll be having our canvas. I've also added a style sheet. So I've given the main total height of 800 VH so that we can have enough distance for scrolling, and for the section container also I've given some style, and then I've used the nth of type selector on the section container itself to target the individual sections, and I've given them separate stylings. The first and the third one has a height of 100 VH, and the second one I've given a height of 700 VH. So this is where the canvas will be, and that's where the animation will take place, and also some styles for the text as well. So let's see this. Let me run npm run dev and open up the browser, and here we go. So this is the basic thing that we are starting with. I've already moved the frames of the images that we generated earlier into the assets folder as well. Let's start with canvas. Let me give it an ID of full canvas. I need to be able to get a reference to this canvas because I need to perform various operations on it. And in React, you can do this with a ref property. And I'll create a ref. Let's call it canvas ref. Use ref on it to get create a ref, and I will pass this ref to the canvas. Wrap the canvas inside a container. If wrap the canvas, also give that a class name as well. We'll call it canvas container. Let's style this real quick. Yeah. I want the canvas container to stick to the top of the screen, so I'll use position sticky. I want it to stick at the top, so I'll give top 0. Let me also style the canvas. Let me give it a width of 100 VW and a height of 100 VH. Let's also give a background color of some color just so that we can see it. So go back to the browser, and yeah, that seems to do it. Let me reduce the height of the canvas to maybe 50 and give a background color to the second container. So let's give it something different. Let's give this. If I go back, you can see the canvas is in blue color and this is in the skin color. So if I scroll down, you can see the canvas sticks to the top, and as I scroll down till the bottom, it stays there. So let me revert these changes. I also don't need the background color. Next, let's create an event listener to listen for scroll events. So I'll use use effect, which I've already imported. We'll set up a use effect that runs on mount by passing an empty dependency array, and I'll attach the event listener onto the window. So I'll do window dot add event listener, and the event I want to listen for is scroll, and I'll pass in a callback function. I'll call it handleScroll, which I'll create in a moment. Let's also do a cleanup. Whenever the component unmounts, we want to remove the event listener. So I'll do window dot remove event listener scroll and handleScroll. Cool. Let's now create the handleScroll function. Make sure that you create it inside the use effect so that there is no issues like stale closures or stale data, and the event listener can be attached only after the DOM has been constructed. So use effect runs after the DOM has been created. Before handleScroll, we need to get the context of the canvas. The context is the object that we get from get context function from canvas ref. The canvas that is what allows us to draw on the canvas. So let's do that. I'll create another ref const and I'll do context ref equal to canvas ref. I'll do optional chaining to make sure the property exists. Dot current dot get context of 2D. We need the 2D context from the canvas. Let's just make sure the handleScroll works. So I'll do a console log for the time being, and I'll just print a message scrolling. Let's go back to the browser, inspect. So if I scroll down, you can see the console being logged, and I also have a minor error. So I had accidentally given class here instead of class name. So since this is JSX, we can't use class. It's basic React. How silly of me. Correct that. Okay. Before implementing all the scroll animations, let's try and load a single image onto a canvas. We'll do this by creating a new image object and setting its src to the image path and then loading the image. Let's do that quickly. G equal to new image. This will create a new image object, and I need to set its source to be equal to the path of the image. Dot /src /assets / give 001.jpg for the time being. Yeah. Also, we need make sure the image loads, the image data is properly loaded and it's asynchronous, and we'll have to use a function for that, which is image.onload, and we'll pass it back function here. This function runs once the image has been successfully loaded into the image object. Once it's done, I will use the canvas context to draw it. So I'll do context ref dot current dot draw image, which is a function used to draw image onto the canvas. I'll pass the image as the first parameter, The second and third parameter tells us the coordinate onto which we have to draw, which is 0 0, which starting from the origin. Let's try this out. Image has been loaded, but it seems that it's scaled out of proportion. Okay, so the issue was because I have used CSS to set the width and height of the canvas. So if you use CSS to set the canvas's dimension, the actual HTML element containing the canvas gets set, and not the actual drawing grid, the pixel drawing grid of the canvas dimension gets set. The default size of the canvas, which is 300 into 150 pixels, that was the dimension of the pixel grid of the canvas, so that was being stretched onto this size, so that is why the distortion. So to remove that, we can just remove the CSS style, and I'll set the dimension of the canvas with JavaScript. So I'll do canvas ref dot current dot, I'll use window dot inner and window dot inner height. I'll move this into the image.download. Additionally, in the draw image function, we can also pass the width and height of the canvas so that the image will get scaled properly as well. Okay, let's see. Yeah, seems to have worked. There we go. The first image has been loaded. The next step is to make sure that the images are present when we are actually scrolling. We have to preload the images, so I'll create a function for that. I'll call it preload images. I'll just call it at the bottom here. Now let's create that function. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna loop through all the frames of images and then load them into a new image object. So beforehand, I'll just declare the total number of frames I have. This case is 148. Create a for loop, named it as turtle. Take it here, total frames I plus plus. We create an image object as before. Then I will set the images src, g.src. I'll use a template string dot slash src slash. Now I want to dynamically generate the name of the images, so I'll do the thing here, and then what I have to do is I, and I'll have to use pad start, so because it will be an index followed by any number of zeros, so the pad start is a perfect function so that, but this needs to be a string, so first I'll convert it, so I'll do dot toString, and now I'll do pad start. So pad start, as you can see with the descriptions, pads the current string with a given string so that the resulting string reaches a given length. So we have to first specify the max length, which is the first parameter. So in our case this is 4, and the string that we have to pad it with is 0. So that is the naming convention we have followed. It's like 0006, so the zeros have to be appended. So that's how we do it. I'll just take this out because we are gonna need to generate the name of this dynamically, so I'll just extract this out into a separate function. Create a function const get image name, if I can type correctly. This should take in an index. This will return the string. Replace the I with index. I'll just call this function with I. Let's head to the browser and check this out. We inspect it, go to the networks tab, select images, let me reload it, and you can see all the images have been loaded except was 000. Yeah, which means I need to give let I equal to 1, so that the images start from 001 and not 000, so that's why that's not there. And also I'll just replace this let with const. Now this is good enough, but if you see, if you scroll down, some of the images are not coming in order. So this we can solve by using promises. I'll wrap it with the Promise.all. Promise.all guarantees that it will return in the same order that we pass it in. So here the order isn't like it's not like properly followed. This will be useful like if you're doing some advanced stuff with the animations and the order of the images is important. So just for safety. So for Promise.all, I'll need an array. Call it image loaded promises. Create an empty array. For each image I'll need to create a promise. So const img load promise takes in resolve and reject parameters. Inside this I'll do the img.onload. So earlier I had mentioned that this was a function. It's not. It's actually an event listener for the loading, and this will run after the image has been loaded. So once the image loads, I'll resolve the promise and I'll resolve it with the image, and if it errors out, I'll do image.on error. Then I will reject it saying something is wrong. Then I will push the promise into the array. So image loaded promises dot push of image load promise, and at the end I'll just return it with Promise.all promises. If I go back to the browser and see, clear the cache and reload. So now it's all loading in the proper order. Let me just minimize this for readability. So we have a function to preload the images, get the image's name, and next we'll be writing the handleScroll function, which is the most important part. Let's look at a diagram to finalize the logic. So this black rectangle that you see is the total size of the container or the document, and that's the scrollable part, and this red box represents our viewport to which the canvas is attached. And as I scroll up or down, the animation should also play. So at the very top the animation should be 0%, and as I scroll down and reach at the bottom, it should be 100%. Now there is a one-on-one mapping between scroll position and the percentage of animation. So if I've scrolled like 50% of the way and there are 150 frames, the image I'll have to show on the canvas at that point is 0.5 times 150, which is 75. So 75th image. Now to get this fraction properly, we can make use of scroll top. So scroll top is a property that gives us the total distance between the top of the element to the top of the visible part of the element. So this much. This is actually part of the document. So this will give us the distance between the viewport and the top of the document. So essentially it's like how much of the document we have scrolled. And also we'll make use of scroll height. Scroll height is basically the total height including the part that is not visible for the element. Then we'll get the fraction by dividing the scroll top by scroll height minus window.inner height. So we'll subtract the height of the window because at this point the animation should be finished. Alright, so let's start by getting the scroll top first. So I'll call it scroll top. That is document element dot scroll top. Okay, the reason I use document element is because document element will return the HTML, which is essentially the entire page, the entire document of it, and that is what will give us the actual scroll property. If you try to take the scroll property of any other single element on the page, it will always return 0, because in the context of scrolling you are actually scrolling the entire page and not any one of the elements. So this is the code that will work. Next, let's get the maximum scrollable distance. Max scroll distance, that will be equal to the same document element dot scroll height minus window dot inner height. Let's get the fraction finally. Const fraction scrolled equal to scroll top divided by max scroll distance. This will give us the fraction. And finally, let's take the image index to show. So I'll call it const image index fraction scrolled by the total frames, the total images, and I'll just do a math.seal on this to round it off. .seal on this. I'll add one more check. I'll do a math.min with total frames. I'll take this value and do a math.min with total frames. This is to ensure that it doesn't the smallest of either of this will be taken, so that this value will never exceed total frames, just as an additional check. Finally, we'll call the request animation function, request animation frame function. And request animation frame is a built-in browser method for building smooth animations. It is very much optimized, and this actually runs before the repaint and the reflow part of the browser rendering cycle, and it has a lot of benefits. It's like a way better compared to set timeout or things like that. So it's very much optimized. It's very ideal for animations. You can read more about it, but basically this is what we'll use. And this takes in a callback function. We need to run a function that updates the image for us. So I'll call it like update image, and I'll pass in the image index as well. Let me then create the update image function. Takes in an index, and then I already have the img here. So what I'll do is img dot src. I'll set the src get image name of index. So I'll get the image index, and then I'll paint this onto the canvas with the help of context. So context ref dot current dot draw image. Draw it at 0,0, and the image should be scaled to canvas ref dot current dot width as well as height. There is one small issue also that needs to be addressed, that is this part, the const scroll top constantly updating. We need to get the latest value, and it's always better to make sure we avoid traps like stale closure to get the latest data. So just for safety, I'll also create one more ref, and I'll call it scroll top ref maybe. And this is just to take care of that stale closure issue. So what I'll do is, instead of const scroll top, I'll do scroll top dot current. I'll assign the value to the ref, and here also I'll replace it. Let's try it out. Wanna learn parkour, and boom, there we go, Michael Scott doing his infamous parkour move. The last thing is to make the parkour text pop up right here, like when he shouts parkour. So let's do that next. We create a p tag, let's call it parkour with a class name as well. Let me call it parkour text. I want this to be position absolute, so that it comes in the bottom of the canvas. So we have the canvas container, and it's inside the canvas container which has a position sticky, so absolute should work. And I'll give it a top of maybe 70%, so that it comes not at the center but at the bottom. Left I'll give us 50% because I want it to be centered horizontally. I'll do a transform translate to move it. I'll give it 50 minus 50%.
respectively. Let's see how that looks. Okay, let's also increase the font size a bit. So font size, I'll give it as maybe 3 rem. Maybe a little bit more bigger, I'll give it as like 5 rem. Yeah, that looks okay. Now the final thing is to make sure that it comes up only at this point. It shouldn't be showing all the time, it should just show when he shouts parkour. So we'll do that with the help of a state. Just set up a state here because we need to re-render. So I'll do const set show text state, and by default it will be false. Since there is like 148 images in total and this is the last image, this is very close to the last image, so I'm just gonna take a random guess and maybe assume that this is like the 140th image. So we need to show parkour when we reach the 140th image. First let's set up the condition. So I'll just cut out the text, and if show text is true, then we show parkour. Come here to the image index. Here I will say if image index less than 140, I will have set show index set to false. Otherwise we'll set it to true. Show text to true. It a little bit more. Let's try 130. Let's check now. Perfect. Parkour, there we go. Come to the end of the tutorial. I hope you guys had fun, and that's how easy it is to create such cool looking animations on the web. I'll be leaving the link to the GitHub repository in the description. Feel free to check it out and get creative from your side. If you like what you see, kindly consider liking, sharing and subscribing. I'm planning to create more such videos about web development, concept explanations and things like that. So that is coming soon.
That's what she said.
It's pretty big.
That's what she said.
It's huge!
That's what she said.
I had to do that. Thanks for watching.